What's going on, everybody? This is Brian Mazique, aka UniqueMazique, the hardest working man in sports and gaming. Now, this is not a normal broadcast. It's not a normal stream. This is not a normal video or program. This is the beginning of something special. I believe I'm speaking that into existence. This is the first episode of At Me, Bro. And I, what can I say? This, myself, and my friend and co-host now, Nelson Blake. Y'all know him as Books if you are familiar with Sim Nation. What's going on, Nelson? You ready to do this?
I'm absolutely ready to do this. And just for people who don't know, the premise of the show is if you guys ever seen the Sim Nation, Brian and I have friendly disagreements on a lot of topics. And if we really got into it on Sim Nation, it would take over the whole show. We can't have that. So this is a space where we get to lock each other in a little cage and getting down to the nitty gritty of what we really disagree on. So I'm looking forward to it. Well, welcome to At Me, Bro. Good to have you here, man.
Now, I cannot take credit for that awesome name. Mr. Blake came up with the name, and it's pretty dope. And the thing of it is like, so picture it like this in case you're having a hard time. So say Sim Nation was like a pregnant person, and they had and Nelson and I's conversations are all these little small babies, right? So this is just a place for all the babies to run around. So this is spawned all these little babies. So that's where we are, man. And so I need to tell y'all what we're going to talk about, because if we were just going to talk about all the topics that we talk about on Sim Nation, then what would be the point? So we are going to talk about some of that same stuff, NBA 2K, basketball, or whatever. But we're going to get a lot into other gaming genres, non-sports games. Talk about, MMA, the UFC, all of that, because you guys might not have known that Books is a former martial artist. He digs MMA probably more than you would have gathered by watching Sim Nation. So I think we got a lot to talk about.
Yep, absolutely. Yeah, and just a quick note on the MMA. Yeah, I would say from about 2002 maybe to about 2008, that was the sport I watched the most by far. I watched every event, undercards, followed, Ultimate Fighter. I even not Pride, all that stuff. I even was watching K1 at a certain point.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Mhm.
So I was just martial arts head, watched all things martial arts. What happened was I just got so involved with work that pay-per-views, when you get really busy on deadline-based work, wasn't working 9 to 5, I was working on deadline. So you just work a weekend and you just find out you missed 5 pay-per-view events in a row. That was when I didn't stop following it, but I got out of the super hardcore
Yeah.
around that time. And then I found out my brother got into MMA, and I came back to it and started really paying attention again.
Yeah, it's funny because that same thing happened to me with professional wrestling, right? I used to be super hardcore. I used to be just, oh my God, ahead. And I kind of stopped. I think like the McMahon Helmsley era just like killed me. So that was some years back, even though they've duplicated that same storyline several times. That's an entire another episode of At Me, Bro. But my my son kind of got me back into it because he
Yeah.
started watching and showing the same type of enthusiasm that I showed when I was his age, and it kind of reinvigorated that kid in me. So I can totally dig it for
Oh,
sure.
I think episode 2, we might have to have a wrestling conversation,
Oh, we definitely
man.
because that's just another one of them little babies running
Yep,
off.
yep.
Let the little baby run. All right, but I know you had something that you wanted to talk about
I
from a
do.
gaming standpoint,
I
and
do.
I want to hear it. I want to hear it.
Okay. So the overall premise is that AAA companies get away with murder. But when people think about that, they think about microtransactions. I'm not talking about that kind of stuff. What I'm talking about is these critically acclaimed games that are great games usually. Kind of game I'm talking about. But specifically, let's say like Last of Us, Red Dead Redemption 2.
I know you are not scoffing at RDR2.
I know, and this is my point. And Uncharted, right? So these games There's another one too. There's somebody else out there getting. Oh, Fallout 76, Bethesda, which is not critically acclaimed. People are all over it. However, the problems from Fallout are from other games. But it comes down to one central thing. What these companies have in common is that they all get allowed to take years and years to make a game, which is great. They get to put a lot of love into these games, which is great. But the dark side of this is that the control schemes that they have are almost exactly the same as the game that they made almost a whole console generation ago.
Mm.
Fallout 76 looks and plays like it was made in 2008, 2009. You know what I'm saying?
Mm.
Like, especially as a PC game. It looks like a high-end 2009 PC game. And the shooting system, like, and I'll go at them first because they're about to come out. But the shooting system in Fallout, they took out all the role-playing elements, all the story elements, and they brought it down to just level up your character, which is not role-playing. That's just building your character, which we do in every game now, right? Every game, NBA 2K builds your character. Most people don't consider it a role-playing game. It's more of a role-playing game than it's Fallout 76. But you shoot in that game, and it feels like some Chinese knockoff free-to-play, not even shooter, something that has shooting in it, right?
Mm.
Like Warframe has shooting in it. It's not supposed to be a shooter.
So kind of like
Destiny's a
how
shooter.
Grand Theft Auto has driving in it, but it's not a driving simulation game.
And to be fair, Grand Theft Auto's driving controls are exempt from this conversation because I think their driving controls are sometimes better than these arcade racers like Need for
Yeah.
Speed and stuff like that.
Right,
And they deserve props for that. But what they don't deserve props for, same thing, their character controls and their shooting. Now, they took a long time to figure out their shooting, right? It took, and really, I think it took years of other games like Saints Row and Sleeping Dogs kind of taken from them for them to really refine their shooting. And to their credit, also, LA Noire and Red Dead. I'm sure they learned the original Red Dead. I'm sure they learned things about that before they got into GTA 5. But you look at the shooting in Red Dead. Shout outs to Czar. He said he had a great line during his live stream of Red Dead, which I highly recommend everybody check out. Because it's few things more fun than watching somebody who can't aim run out into the open and try not to curse if they scream while 100 people watching. So, but he had a great line. He said, "I didn't know they had bulletproof vests back then." So you've got
cowboys.
Yeah, man. So you got these bullet spongy cowboys and this semi-lock-on gummy system with this tanky. Everybody talks about how tanky this character is, right? The Red Dead Redemption 2 character. Everybody talks about it. Oh man, I can't jump. I thought I'd be able to jump over that gate. Or turn, don't run into them. Oh, I'm wanted because I accidentally ran over somebody with my horse. Right? Like this is many YouTubers and streamers are going through this. Like this is a universal experience basically, from what I've seen. And I'm not saying it's not a great game, but what I'm saying is people use words like perfect and blah blah blah. That's a lot of praise for something with bad controls. And I think these companies, and I would say the same thing for the same exact reasons goes for Uncharted and Last of Us. The game doesn't feel good to control, right? Like you have a game like Destiny, it's the opposite. It feels great to control, has
Right.
some problems with story and some of their systems and stuff like that. But in terms of the control, most people play Destiny because it just feels so good it's hard to put down, even when the game ain't got you doing nothing, right? And I just feel like, it's time to start that these AAA companies stop being so, it seems like they're being arrogant about, they feel like because they get all of this praise, they don't have to adapt to what every other game is doing. I'm going to share one more little anecdote about this. So my brother was showing me some Fallout 76 footage back before we knew that it might not be like a great game. And this guy is running from all of these scorched. They're basically zombies, right? Irradiated human beings that don't have brains, but they can shoot guns. He's running from them, and he runs into this little like bar area. And he tries to jump over the counter and slide like he can in every other video game. And you could actually see him pause and go, wait, why can't I do that? He didn't even say it. You could just see it in the controls. Like you've seen this in every single game, Gears of War had a version with jumping over cover. Obviously, Destiny, Call of Duty have the run and slide and stuff like that. So many modern games allow you to do this, and this game all of a sudden just has an invisible wall over a countertop that you should clearly just be able to jump over. And it's this kind of thing. Like, you, as great as these companies are, you have to adapt and adjust to the times and give us a modern version of this brilliant piece of artwork that you're delivering. And that's pretty much my rant. I just can't stand seeing something called perfect when one of the main important things about gaming, dating back to Mario, controls, is one of the worst things about the game by far.
Yeah, I can agree with you there in terms of Red Dead. Red Dead doesn't control perfectly. But you know what, a lot of times what happens, and I think this happens in all brands of entertainment. I think that you get to a point where something is so esteemed and something is so highly thought of that people want it to be great. And because they want it to be great, because there's an expectation there for it to be great, that they look past certain things, or they look at things as an artistic flaw, which is far more acceptable than a technical flaw, when sometimes they're the same thing.
Yeah.
But they look at it as an artistic flaw because of the respect that they have for the franchise or the brand. When if this was just some other game, just made and didn't have the history that Red Dead has, didn't have the shine that Rockstar has, which is pretty much what you're saying, they're getting away with murder. These things would be criticized far more seriously than they are. As of right now, they're getting laughed off. But that takes me to our next thing, my next thing, of what I wanted to say, which is not really a rant. I got something I want to get off my chest a little bit later, but this is about Red Dead. And this is one of the reasons why the game gets a pass. It's because it is beautiful.
Yeah, it's gorgeous.
It is beautiful. The game is beautiful. The dialogue is fantastic. I would go as far as to say it is the best dialogue in any video game story I've ever seen. One of the very close seconds to me is something that's really underrated. You play Champion mode in Fight Night Champion. The story that they have.
Yeah, I remember. Yeah, yes.
Oh man, the dialogue there is really good. But Red Dead Redemption 2 is right there. So for those who don't know, which you guys probably, if you're watching this channel, you pretty much know this. I write for Forbes, and I did an article on this particular game. And what I did, I've done this my whole life. Like even for non-video games, even for comic books or whatever, I like to come up with these casts, right? Like a fictitious cast or whatever. I like to come up with, no budget. So obviously, you'll be paying a gazillion dollars to get this person in here, this person in there. I like to come up with a cast for things that have not been casted, right? I remember a long time ago, I was dead set I wanted Angela Bassett to play Storm.
Everybody did.
Everybody
did.
That was her or Iman.
She could still play Storm.
She could still play Storm, and it would still be dope, right? So that was just the best one. So I did that for Red Dead, and so I'm going to share it with you. I'm going to actually show it to you on the screen, what I picked, in case you have not seen it. I also put the link to because I'm not going to like read the article, but I'll just kind of go through the images. I'll put the link in the description so that you want to go ahead and click on that and check it out. You can. But let's start off with the lead character. All right. So that is Arthur Morgan. And this could have gone a couple different ways, but I really liked Christian Bale for this. Christian Bale's already been in a Western and 310 to Yuma. And I don't know. He's just got that face. He's got that face. Lately, he's put on a little bit of weight. He's looking.
It's probably like a good thing for this kind of thing.
Yeah, he's looking a little bit like Bane lately. But he's there. But I would go with him there. Now, Daniel Day-Lewis or Josh Brolin as Dutch. Now, in the image that I have on the screen here of Daniel Day-Lewis, you probably can't see it. But if you've ever seen The Gangs of New York, then you know what I'm talking about. Like, I almost think that maybe Dutch was inspired by Daniel Day-Lewis's character in the Gangs of New York. I mean, it just looks like him. His name was Bill Cutting the Butcher. So, and then Josh Brolin. I try to work Josh Brolin in pretty much every movie. I mean, it
He's
could be
great.
like
Yeah, he's
the
great.
remake of Steel Magnolias. I'm gonna try.
He was so good as Cable.
Yeah, I'm gonna try to put him in someplace. I'm just gonna
And
try to
obviously
put him in.
Thanos. Yeah.
Yeah, obviously, right. And then so Abigail Roberts, Zoe Deschanel, she's on the New Girl. I think she has a lot of range that she maybe people haven't got a chance to see yet. She was in a Western. It wasn't a great movie. It was the assassination of Jesse James by the coward Robert Ford with Brad Pitt
I
and
saw
Casey
that.
Affleck.
I actually really like that movie.
Yeah, some people didn't like it. You know what I mean? But I think she could do her thing in that role. Jeff Bridges as Bill Williamson. Come on.
Yeah, yeah.
That works. That absolutely works. That totally works. Jeff Bridges is cool. I remember I saw Jeff Bridges. I'm going to tell y'all how old I am. I saw the first movie I ever saw with Jeff Bridges was called Starman. He was like an alien. And that's all I remember. And I liked it. That's all I remember. But that's the first one that I saw him in. Then we got Charles Smith, that character from the game. And I had Zahn McClarnon. He's the only Native American character really in the game that has, any kind of a role. But he's actually in the game. He's half Native American, part African American. I thought that matched pretty well. Feel free to tell me I'm absolutely insane in the comments and say that doesn't look like or whatever. Or if you have some ideas, feel free to put them there. Now, I also have Javier Escuela playing Michael Pena. I love Javi in Narcos. I think he kills it in there, but he was also in an underrated film called Frontera with Ed Harris. So check that out if you haven't. Karen Jones, who I'll just tell y'all right now, I'm married and I'm not like trying to be disrespectful, but Christina Hendricks is yeah. So I think her as Karen Jones would be awesome. I think I think it matches. Right? Mahershala Ali as Lenny Summers. See, I'm trying to stop. I don't want to be the dude who just picks the same black dude to play all of the black roles for like a whole 5. You remember, like for about 5 years straight, Anthony Mackie got casted as every black man.
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
He was everybody. You know what I mean? He was anybody you want to. So I don't want to make Mahershala that guy, but I'm kind of doing it anyway. So it is what it is. Sarah Silverman as Mary Beth Gaskell. What say you, Books? Does that I think that works. I like it.
I'm not sure. I'm not sure about. I don't know if I would ever put Sarah Silverman in a role where she's not trying to be funny.
Now she did one, right, called I Smile Back, right, where she plays a wife who has a drug problem and she's a thief and she also cheats on her husband insanely. So she is like this crazy troubled character. So that and her part in that horrible A Million Ways to Die in the West. I'm saying that. Nobody else is saying. I'm saying that. The movie was terrible. But it's a Western.
It's not that I don't think she can do it, because most comedians are pretty good at dramatic acting.
Yes.
Like, you know what I mean? Like, especially if they're like actor comedians. Like a lot of actor comedians can flip it. But I think in this kind of thing, somebody who would really carry, I think actually Maggie Gyllenhaal is excellent.
Oh yeah. She will work.
She will that, and she has kind of a face that works in a period piece. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Actually, that you say that now, I'm thinking about her as this role, Amy Adams.
I would say that, but I would never kick Amy Adams off of a casting.
Yes.
I'm always good with Amy Adams being invited.
Lois Lane, baby. So she can. I think she works, and she's the love interest, or she's the one who Dutch is in love with in Red Dead Redemption. So Paul Giamatti as Pearson.
Okay.
Yeah. The sideways guy. I mean, I feel like that works.
Yeah.
Then we got William H. Macy as Reverend Swanson. So okay, Reverend Swanson is a drunk in Red Dead Redemption. If you've ever seen Shameless, I don't think there's anybody in the world who plays a drunk better than William H. Macy. I don't think nobody, I don't know. I can't think of anybody, maybe Dudley Moore. I don't know, but I can't think of anybody else who does that better. What else do we got here? We got, okay, Scarlett Johansson, I think she definitely works. I memean, Sadie Adler on this art piece, she actually looks like she could be Scarlett Johansson. Like just the eyes and nose. I think that works. I really think that works. Dom Hall, I hope I'm saying his name right. Domhnall Gleeson as Sean McGuire. I look at that. Like when I first looked at this, I thought Adrian Brody. That's the first thing I thought about. But then I was like, no. It's this fella. It's this fella. I think this works really, really good. It's different than just about everything that Gleason has done, but I think it's something that he could do for sure. I definitely like me some Electra. Jennifer Garner as Susan Grimshaw. They probably have to age her up a little bit, make her face a little, a little bit more, a little more weathered for that character. But I think it works. Now Zoe Saldana, woo! Mercy. Yes, as Tilly Jackson, that works. That
You ever seen the show Godless?
No.
It's really good on Netflix. I highly recommend you check that out. It's a Western.
Okay.
People put in some good work on that show. It starts off slow, but it pays off, man.
All Westerns start off slow. That's just the
you know what? You playing Red Dead, probably no better time to watch that on Netflix. I highly recommend it.
Yeah, I love Westerns. So, that's nothing for me. And then my last one is Bill Murray as Uncle. I think you need a comedic thing in there. Uncle is kind of that character anyway. So that's my spiel. Like I said, you guys are free to tell me what you don't like or whether or not that's some trash or what have you. But that's what I dig. I think that would be a great casting for a live action, big budget. Because obviously, I know all of those actors that we're talking about a $455 gazillion budget to try to get all those people there. But it doesn't matter. That's why you do things that are on the fantasy tip. All right. So, okay. We talk a little bit about Red Dead Redemption 2, but y'all know at our core, we love some hoops for sure. And I was thinking about this, right? Because some of this has come off of like some conversations that we've had on Sim Nation, conversations I've had just in the streets. There's a lot of players, right, who get a lot of love for a lot of different reasons. And quite honestly, I think a lot of times people are scared or just too dumb to admit that some of these guys are overrated. So I want to know. I already got the person in my head who I'm going to say, and I actually hope we don't agree. I really hope we don't agree. But I know who I'm going to say. Who do you think is the most overrated player in the NBA books?
I was gonna say the most overrated player. So just to be sure, the criteria is people have to think that they're good or pretty good.
And this person gets like attention and love, and they're adorned as one of the best players, but you just don't think they are. Or maybe you think they are, you just don't think they're as good as people say they are.
All right, the one who would fit my criteria the most right now, this very day, would probably be John Wall.
That's interesting.
Probably be John Wall. And I've said this before on Sim Nation. Because there are people who up until last year would say they prefer John over like Russell Westbrook or Kyrie Irving. Like there are people who'd say this, and that looks like a ludicrous thing to say. Really by any measure, just comparing their careers. Because John Wall is playing with other All-Stars.
Mm-hmm.
He's playing with a coach that has been to the finals right now. I know everybody doesn't love Scott Brooks, but that's just the fact of the matter. And you could argue that he has given him the least success. You know what I'm saying? And has John seriously come up big in the playoffs? Has John, I think the biggest thing about John is that as a point guard, his team is not behind him. People complain, and I'm not making this about John versus Westbrook, or even Kyle Lowry, right? Who's another guy, a point guard that gets heavily criticized, way beyond what he should get criticized for if you look at his actual production and career and where he's been, right?
Mm-hmm.
John Wall, I don't think you have to be a traditional point guard. Steph Curry's not a traditional point guard. He spends a lot of time off ball. I still think he's a great point guard. He's just a point guard who primarily scores. But what Steph, Westbrook, and Lowry all have is their team is behind them.
Mm-hmm.
I would even say Kyrie Irving seems to have that for the most part in Boston, even though I think Kyrie Irving is out of the top point guards. I mean, between him and Dame, just the worst playmakers, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, not great guys at setting up and passing and getting guys into spots from a strategic standpoint. But John Wall does not have his team's back, and he doesn't have their back. And I think that's the worst. Similar to a quarterback, if the offensive line don't believe in you, that team is done. And it's this, I think the same things with the Washington Wizards. I think that's the number one problem with the Washington Wizards. They have other issues, but I think the number one problem, which has bared out over the last 2 years, is that that team does not have John Wall's back. And that is why he is overrated. I think people take his athleticism. He came in kind of heavy, as we discussed before. So he doesn't look as explosive in terms of the jumping. People look at the numbers, the fact that there were a couple of years where his defense was actually pretty strong, and they automatically put him where he shouldn't be, which is he is a losing point guard right now, and people aren't calling him out on that. And he's getting $40 million like a year from like next year on.
Yeah. You know, that's strong. I must say that's strong. And you make a strong case, and it's hard to totally argue with that. And I don't think that here's my thing. And I'm going to say this before I give you mine. I think that John Wall is playing beneath the level that we've seen him play. I think he's capable of more, but I do believe he's in a toxic situation, whether or not it's of his own doing or not. He's in a toxic situation, and I just think that he's not in the right spot from any way, shape, or form to be the type of player that I think he can still be. You did say, has he ever done had been really great in the postseason? In the 2017 playoffs, he was phenomenal, right?
He's had good games.
I mean, for the whole playoffs, for the 13 postseason games they had, he averaged 27 points, 3.7 rebounds, and 10.3 assists. I mean, he was phenomenal, and he shot 34% from 3-point range, which for him is really, really good, right? Played great defense, ran the floor, took all kinds of big shots, knocked down big shots, but something went wrong at the beginning of last season. And everything went like this, especially between him and Brad Beal and other people or whatever. So I think that there's still room for John Wall to get back to where he was and perhaps even, ascend even higher. I mean, it's not as if he's 33 years old or anything
he's pretty
like
young.
that. He's only 28,
But
right?
here's my argument to that, though. If you look at the top point guards in the league and you just simply trade them for John Wall, I think everybody who's in the top 5, 6, 7, 8, you probably get better results than he's gotten. And I don't think people think that. I think if you just put Damian Lillard on the Wizards, they're just a better team. If you just put Kyrie Irving on the Wizards, they're a better team. If definitely Russell Westbrook, they're just a better team. Obviously Steph Curry, they're just a better team. Chris Paul, they're just a better team. You know what I'm saying? I think John Wall is a guy who puts up big numbers, but he has been making his team underachieve. Because if he was good, because here's the trap with John Wall. If you think he was great, then the only option you have to say is to admit that every single year they lost to an inferior team.
Well, I don't think he was great. I think he was really good.
But people think he's great.
No, I think he was on the cusp of being great. I mean, if you think about it, in the postseason, they lost in 7 games to the Boston Celtics. And that was a really, really good Boston Celtics team that only lost to Kyrie Irving, LeBron James, and Kevin Love in the Eastern Conference Finals.
But here's the thing, though. On paper, the Washington Wizards had the better All-Stars.
Better All-Stars. Yeah, but I don't think they were a better team overall.
What that's my point.
But
That's exactly my
but they
point.
didn't
Is
lose.
that
They lost to
Washington,
an
here's
inferior
the thing.
team.
Washington has never in his entire career, ever, no matter how good his numbers were, no matter how well he played, looked like a good team.
So I don't know. I think that year they looked like a good team.
I don't think they look like a good team. And I think that was better than he is now. And my point isn't that he's always been 100% totally overrated, but I think people have thought he was going to turn into something. And the last 2 years, he's gone south. And now he is so far south that he should no longer be. For instance, who's better, John Wall or Kemba Walker? See, overrated. That's my point. Because
Yeah.
Kemba Walker is playing so much better than John Wall, it's unreasonable to hesitate.
Playing better than he is right now. But I mean, and I don't honestly. It's not like John Wall is having just a dreadful year. I mean, he's having a down year for what he had been doing over the last 5 seasons. But he's averaging 21 and a half points a game, 7.6 assists, 2.5 steals a game.
Yeah, that's my point. He looks good on paper, but then when you investigate, he's the Jay Cutler of basketball.
Well, Jay Cutler never looked good on paper.
So
He was good on paper, and it wasn't even in Chicago.
I've spoken. I can't say who I've spoken to, but I know from firsthand accounts that Jay Cutler in that locker room was what some sports commentators said, whereas basically,
Yeah,
we will never win because it doesn't matter if he throws less interceptions. He is a locker room breaking guy with this team.
absolutely.
There are too many people on this team that will not follow him for us to succeed. Which is your point with Jimmy Butler. That's your point. That's been your point with Jimmy Butler.
But
the difference being, I think Jimmy Butler has produced better results than John Wall in terms of the on-offs.
I don't know. I don't know about that, bro. I mean, what has Jimmy Butler done in the postseason?
Jimmy Butler has not been on a very good team at all. And Minnesota, him coming back from injury, like in Minnesota last year, was looking like a very good team with Jimmy Butler, and he got hurt. And when he came back, yeah, they lost to Houston, which was a better team on paper, right?
Yeah, I don't know, man. I'm not doubting it.
Same thing with them versus Boston. They looked like they were going to beat Boston, and then they lost Rondo.
And then they lost Rondo. Yeah,
but they looked like they were going to beat Boston. Like that's what I'm saying. Like Jimmy Butler teams at times look like, okay, that team is starting to look really legit. And Jimmy has his flaws, but people know Jimmy has his flaws. I think some people think that John Wall is a top 5 point guard, and I find that to be unreasonable.
He was playing at that level at one point, but now this year he's not, and because of the horrible team result.
You said it started last year though, and it did.
Yeah, it did. It started last year. Right now, but I mean, last year he had a strong year. Last year he had a strong year, but it was just that I think the beef between he and Beal, and then the injuries that they had, him included, last year, I think is what derailed them. But let me talk about my guy.
Who's your guy? Who's your guy?
You've already mentioned him, actually.
Is it Jimmy Butler? Is this an excuse?
It's not Jimmy. This is not a
conspiracy. Thank God. Thank God.
I'm not gonna do that. But it is Kyrie Irving.
It's Kyrie Irving. Okay.
Yeah. I believe Kyrie Irving is the best finishing player, 6'2" and under, that I've seen. Maybe the only other person close to him in terms of finishing with proficiency, especially for a guy who doesn't play above the rim. The only other guy I can think of close is Tony Parker.
Tony Parker, yeah. Tony Parker's probably overall.
Yes. I mean, just right. Yeah. But Kyrie is a spectacular offensive player.
Yeah.
But defensively, I think that he is below average. From a standpoint of creating for teammates, I think he is average at best. And so the profile that I just created is not a profile of a bad player by any stretch. And clearly it's not a profile of a player that cannot win a championship. He's already played an integral role in a championship team. But what it is a profile of a player who is not a superstar, They are a star. And for me, I think Kyrie Irving is almost universally thought of as a superstar by so many people. I mean, even 2K puts him on the cover of I mean, I understand why he has the appeal that young basketball fans are interested in. He's short enough for them to be able to relate to him from a size standpoint because he's not this big, huge, hulking guy. And then he has the cool, nasty dribble moves.
Yeah.
And he can shoot the ball from the outside. So everything that the young people, who maybe could only ever dream of playing, everything that they would like or would be attracted to, he's got. And I think that skews the view of him. And also, obviously, we're in an era in terms of basketball and even basketball fans where there is such a high emphasis placed on scoring, and there's a degraded level of appreciation for defense. And two-way players don't get respected as much as a one-dimensional offensive player. And that is what Kyrie is. He is a one-dimensional offensive player. He's a really good one, but he's a one-dimensional offensive player. And to me, that guy doesn't deserve to be mentioned in the same breath as some of the guys who play both ends of the floor and create for their team. Now, it's different, okay, because Steph is not a great defender. Steph plays passing lanes, one-on-one defense against most big-time point guards. They hide him. They try to put Clay on him instead of. So we know that. But Steph does at least create better for his team than Kyrie does, even in an offense where he doesn't even dominate the ball. He's still a better passer. Secondly, Steph's the greatest shooter that ever lived, period. So that matters. That really does matter. So I can't put Steph in that same overrated category because even though some people could make an argument that Steph is somewhat one-dimensional. Well, that one dimension is better than everybody.
He's a 3-point Shaq, right? Like he don't need to be good at nothing else.
It doesn't matter because I shoot so well from every standpoint: running, jumping, standstill, catch and shoot, whatever, coming off a screen, you name it, off 1 foot, doesn't matter. I can shoot. Nobody else has shot like me. So I can't put him in that same category, but I do think that Kyrie is the most overrated player.
Now, I've gone on record on Sim Nation as saying I thought Kyrie was overrated. But let me ask you just to clarify, because we're talking about most overrated, right?
Right.
Where do you rank Kyrie amongst point guards right now? Now, let's be fair to Kyrie, he's coming off of a knee injury and is not 100%.
I don't care nothing about his knee injury, man.
That's not really fair. Like he didn't even have an offseason. Like he's clearly not 100% in shape yet. Like. You good?
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay. Yeah, no, I was just saying he's clearly not 100% in shape, but the question still stands. Where do you rank Kyrie, personally?
You know what? I gotta kind of look through where so you kind of got to go process of elimination. I think he's better than Kyle Lowry. Okay. I think he's better than Eric Bledsoe. I think he's better than Collison. I don't think he's better than Ben Simmons. Ben Simmons has obvious holes, right? But Ben Simmons has that same overpowering one dimension that you can't do anything about. And you ask me, does Ben Simmons make everybody on the floor better? Absolutely, he does. Can you stop him? No, not you. You can't, because if you could, they would. I mean, you kind of try to overbalance the floor and you try to give him the jump shot, but the guy is such a good passer. The size is such a factor that, to me, I don't.
I'm okay. So let me ask you. I have a couple questions to ask you because I think we're in weird territory here. Now you haven't fully ranked him yet. The audience can see you're a little wishy-washy on this. I'm gonna let it go. It's the first show. I'm gonna take it easy on you. So you said he's better than Kyle Lowry.
Yes.
Do you think the Toronto Raptors would be better if you traded Kyle Lowry for Kyrie Irving?
You know
See,
what?
that's what I'm saying.
I
Like,
don't think. You know what? I don't think so. And here's the reason why. Because Kyle Lowry is a superior defender.
so here's the thing, Mazique, and this is what I'm getting to a degree with John Wall, is when it comes to point guards don't always make sense. People want point guards to make perfect sense. They want
Right.
it to be, you got 20 points, 10 assists, you pass the ball, you bring it up court, you tell everybody where to go. That means you're a good point guard. Everybody wants to be Chris Paul. And this is how the Russell Westbrook Defense Committee got started, amongst other things. And I was saying, no, the Oklahoma City Thunder are pretty happy with Russell Westbrook because what he does is a matchup advantage that teams can't compensate for. And even though I thought Chris Paul was a great point guard, I thought that people were taking the prototypical thing so far that they were ignoring what they were getting out of him. And he would sometimes dominate the matchup. And when you talk about playoff point guards, dominating the matchup does matter. When you're talking about all time, matchups don't matter as much. But when you're talking about theory crafting, they might not matter as much. But when you talk about head to head, matchups definitely matter, right? So
Yeah.
that's just so the thing about it is when you're talking about point guards, you're saying what kind of team can I put you on to maximize the results?
But
And
you know
so
what? I don't
just to
think that.
close out the point, I don't think that Kyrie Irving on a team like Toronto, where his primary thing is to defend, hit open threes, get guys into their spots and move the ball, I don't think he's better at that than Kyle Lowry would be. And so I don't know if you'd necessarily get better results because on that team, the defense is going to be better with Lowry. And when it comes to crunch time, the ball is going to be either moving or in the hands of Kawhi Leonard. There's not a question of should it just be in Lowry's hands. Whereas with Kyrie Irving and Jason Tatum, there's going to consistently, until they work it out, be this issue of shouldn't y'all just be throwing it to Jason Tatum? And does Kyrie have a problem with that? That's going to be a problem going forward. And so when you talk about quote unquote better point guards, it's how the point guard adds to the winning. Now, in Kyrie's defense, and here's where I'm going to defend Kyrie Irving to what you were saying. You, I think, have sweeping under the rug Kyrie's skill. Most people think of his skill as dribbling and finishing, but his real skill, and I hate to use this term because it's so overused and dumb, but it's just true. It's the clutch gene. Kyrie Irving is better in big games, big moments. Kyrie Irving, as great as Steph is, against Steph Curry, Kyrie Irving has the capability to output like Steph Curry.
Yeah.
That doesn't work on every team.
But I think there's a caveat to that.
Go ahead.
I think he has that ability when he's playing second. I don't think that he can do that if he's the guy, only the guy. Because we haven't seen him do that. We saw Kyrie Irving at the same level of play, basically put together worse seasons than what we're seeing, way worse seasons than what we saw from John Wall.
But Kyrie,
Wall's career.
well, I mean, they were both injury prone early in their careers, so it's really.
But when Kyrie, I mean, there were seasons like, okay, Kyrie's third season, he played 71 games.
Yeah, but how many games did he play in his first two?
He played 51 the first season. He played 59 the second, and then he played 71 in the third.
Constantly injured and on terrible teams. I mean, he's also playing with Anthony Bennett.
But here's what I'm saying. I mean, Washington,
terrible teams. Like people expected. Good.
Now Washington's not a good team either.
They're not good, but they weren't as terrible as the Cavs. Like the Cavs they were a worse organization at that time. Like they were in shambles. Like everybody expected them to be in the lottery every year. Like it was a situation where it didn't matter what Kyrie did. And they didn't have like veteran leaders. They didn't have a stable coaching situation. Like it was a nightmare. Like I wouldn't expect any point guard to perform well under those circumstances, especially, and you know my rule in Sim Nation, when it comes to point guards, I don't judge young point guards harshly. I can talk about their game, but understand that when I'm talking about a young point guard's game, if they turn around and change tomorrow, I'm totally with it because that's how it goes with young point guards. And real quick, we've seen Both Tyreek Evans averaged 25 and 5 in his first year and then not really do much. And we've seen Chauncey Billups bounce around, look like an absolute bust, and then turn into a finals MVP. So, and you can, Tony Parker didn't look like he was going to be Tony Parker until a little bit of the ways in. He was drafted late, all that other stuff. So, is Steph Curry injury prone? Part of the reason Golden State Warriors are the way they are is because Steph couldn't get a contract that John Wall got because he had the injuries. He looked a little inconsistent, looked kind of shaky, still not sure like how great he's going to be. And he got a pretty favorable contract because you didn't know if he was going to be healthy. And if he was healthy, it wasn't like Anthony Davis where it's like, well, we just have to take the risk because if he's healthy, he's the best player in the league. It wasn't like that with Steph. And I do think Steph is top 3 in the league. I think he's a top 3 player in the league. So, it's young point guards. That's how young point guards go. So I'm not going to have any argument where I say, well, look at what they did the first 3 years because they're point guards and that can go any old way with young point guards. It's a lot of responsibility.
Well, see, I guess my thing is Kyrie's the same player. He's the same player he was then. He's the same guy.
Kyrie's worked on his game, man.
I mean, he's better at the same stuff that he was good at to begin with.
But that's everybody. I mean, so is Steph.
Some guys
Steph ain't do nothing new. He could shoot from half court when he was 16 years old.
Some guys add layers to their game.
I don't think Steph has added layers to his game. I think Steph just got healthier and better and more confident, and they got a better scheme, and other guys around him got better. And, but I don't think he's a different player.
I actually think he's a better defender, even though he's still not great. I think he's a better defender.
But he ain't great, so it doesn't really matter. And I think it's easy to be a better defender. Because they said the same thing about Kyrie last year. Oh, he's a better defender now, but he's not really better. He's just playing on a team with a better defensive scheme. I feel like same thing with Steph. It's like if you have him guard, Russell Westbrook or somebody like that, I think he just gets blown up every single time. Like every single time. And Steve Kerr knows it too. So, can Steph guard Kyrie Irving? No, he can't guard Kyrie Irving. It looks like good defense, but Kyrie somehow still scores. Right? They don't want the matchup. So his defense doesn't matter in him getting better. What matters is his overall intelligence, his consistency, and his ability to play big in big moments.
See, I don't think that for the sake of this particular argument, we can take into consideration how they fit into their specific teams. That at the bottom line, at the end of the day, is going to be the most important thing. But when we're talking about who's better, okay, give you a perfect example, like the Oklahoma City Thunder teams that had, Westbrook and Harden and Durant, right?
I mean, that was a pretty short time. They were very, very young.
Right. But that even, okay, take Harden off, just Durant and Westbrook, right? Most people felt that Westbrook wasn't the right type of point guard for that team because those two guys together, their talent level was so high that they were able to get to places that they got. But in the postseason, their style of play, their approach on offense was not one that was a winning approach.
I firmly disagree with that assertion. My assertion has always been with Oklahoma City is that if Westbrook is your point guard, you need to surround him with shooting, similar to Ben Simmons. And we're seeing the same thing with Ben Simmons. And Russell's a better shooter than Ben Simmons, but it's still the same thing. When you have a guy who's going to push the ball in the open court and get dribble penetration at a high level in the half court game, if they don't have shooting, you're killing your whole team. And that's what Philly's going through right now. It's the same exact thing. Ben Simmons last year looking really good. Philly was kind of doing okay. They got those two shooters. Philly skyrocketed because all of a sudden Ben Simmons becomes unguardable. They lost those shooters, right? And now they put Markelle Fultz in the starting lineup, and now Ben Simmons has no space. Oklahoma City has failed to put solid shooting around their team for a very, very long time, and they still have won almost or more than 50 games for most of Russell's career. They've made it to NBA Finals. They've won several playoff series. Like, they're not a team that has ever maybe last year, theoretically, you could argue they underachieved losing to Utah. I don't think that's true. That's the only time you could argue that they underachieved and lost to a team that they shouldn't have lost to. And that's what we're really talking about, is losing to teams you should not have lost to.
But that's not what I'm talking. I'm talking about individually, which of these guys are better? this is the question, because you asked me to rank Kyrie Irving, right? And so the point I was getting at is, with that Oklahoma City team, I believe, and I think there are other people who would support this opinion, I believe that a better style, a better profile point guard for that team would have been someone like Chauncey Billups. Now, is Chauncey Billups a better player than Russell Westbrook? No, he's not. He's not. Russell does too many things. He's athletic overall as a singular guy, as a talent. He's far more talented than Chauncey Billups. But Chauncey Billups' style, I think, would have been a much better fit, because they needed people to run an offense sometimes. When isolation is not going to work, and isolation is not going to be the way for you to ultimately get a bucket, which is pretty much their default during that time. You need someone who can run and engineer an offense. Also a guy who can knock down an open jump shot, which does kind of speak to your point to a degree about surrounding dynamic players with shooters. So that personally is my thing. But what I'm talking about is how, if you're asking me who's better, Chauncey Billups or Russell Westbrook, I'm probably going to tell you Westbrook all the time. Doesn't mean that he's the best fit for that particular team. So when we talk about Kyle Lowry and Kyrie Irving, which is what we were talking about originally, you say, is Kyrie Irving better than Kyle Lowry? I think I would give Kyrie Irving an edge over Kyle Lowry, because I think offensively he's just that much better. The clutch aspect is that. But on that particular team, I don't know that they need everything that Kyrie Irving delivers, because they have Kawhi, because they have Jonas Valanciunas. What Kyle Lowry can do is enough for them. But individually, I would give Kyrie an edge. I do have an answer for you, and I know people are going to, if they had tomatoes to throw at the screen, they're going to do it. Kyrie Irving, in my opinion, is the 7th best point guard in the NBA.
Okay, who's your top 6?
Okay, so and not necessarily going to rank these guys.
Yeah, just 6. We don't need to muddy the conversation.
But
There's two
on one team that I say are better.
Chris Paul and James Harden.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Chris Paul and James Harden. Then I would go Russell. Okay. Then I would go Damian Lillard. I would take Lillard. Now, Steph is 5, and then we have Ben Simmons. I believe I would take Ben Simmons over Kyrie Irving. Now, if I think that Kemba and Kyrie are like identical.
I've been saying that on Sim Nation. I don't think I think identical is a little. It's, you know what it is. I don't want to take away from Kyrie how great he's been with LeBron James.
Yes.
And his ability to throw up 40, 50,
yes,
really carry the offense and be extremely dynamic. Like hit clutch shots in great players' faces. And the thing about Kyrie that I would take over Kemba is Kyrie's ability to score is completely undefendable when he's in his bag. And it's not about his ball handle. It's about his ability to, you can call it finishing. I think it's just score. He knows how to get up shots that go in around people. And there's a certain point where there's nothing you can really do about it. I don't know if Kemba's offensive peak is there. I do think Kemba is more solid and consistent at the other stuff, right? Kemba just take this screen and hit a 3. He's gonna just do it at a better clip, right? I think Kemba's a little faster than Kyrie.
He's faster. He's a better athlete,
right? He's a better athlete than Kyrie Irving, which brings you consistency, right? So I think better is like I said, I think it's a conversation, and people don't think it's a conversation. That's my point. If the end of the conversation was that Kyrie is better than Kemba Walker, and you can prove it for these reasons, I might agree with you. But to say that it's not a conversation is where the overrated thing comes in. So we both agree that Kyrie is overrated. However, I don't think Kyrie, and I'm glad you put him at 7, because I don't think people have Kyrie higher than 5.
I think some people, I know, I've heard people tell me Kyrie's the best point guard in the NBA.
That's ridiculous. No one thinks Kyrie's better than Steph.
Man, especially after the finals, especially right after the finals, but
not now.
I think they're still on the high.
I think they might be high.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's still on the high. I'm telling you, man.
But I don't think
You
most
had
people think
people
that.
saying,
I think most people's point guard rankings goes rough. Most people don't consider James Harden a point guard. Most people roughly, from my discussions with them, consider it like Steph, Russ, CP3, and then Kyrie, Dame, and maybe John, and then they go to Kyle Lowry and Kemba Walker. I think most people have it roughly like that. I'm with you in that Kyrie's overrated. I don't think because I don't. I think it's more about the fact that Steph is the best point guard in the league, and then there is a drop off. And then you have Russ, CP3, and James, who all have their pluses and minuses. And depending on the team you have, one might be better than the other. You
yeah,
know,
yeah, one is
um,
a better fit depending on. But
depending on what you
now
have.
Steph is the guy who I think he fits no matter where.
Yeah. Because he can shoot. And this goes back to what I was saying about Kyrie. I think you're sweeping it under the rug a little bit. Because Kyrie is a great shooter, I think there are situations that I think in today's league, it's important to be a great shooter. I do agree with you that his defense can be just atrocious sometimes.
Hmm.
I agree with you. And I mean, for me, the main thing is his playmaking. He's
Yeah,
a guy who can't get over 5 assists a game in
yeah,
today's league. Like,
yeah. Like I mean, like LeBron told him the one day. He said, "Dude,
you can't have you can't have one assist a game.
you can't have one assist in a game, bro. That just can't be. That just can't be." So I don't know. To me,
I don't think Kyrie's the most, because here's the thing. Where would you rank John Wall?
I would have John Wall right under them, right under him, like at around 8.
Like 8, 9, 10, right?
Yeah, 8, 9. Yeah.
Because would you really rather have John Wall than Drew Holiday? I know Drew's been playing a lot of two guard lately, but I don't know, man.
I'd rather have John because John puts more pressure on the defense when he's attacking. Because
Maybe.
I'm of the belief that this John is not
Maybe.
really John.
What's wrong with him?
I
Ain't
think
nothing
there's
wrong with him.
something wrong. I think there's something wrong with it,
He's
and I
fine.
don't think that it's physical. I think it's just
Well, that's a problem.
I think he's over this team, and I think that
It's his team.
but I think he's trapped because of the contract.
It's $40 million a year he about to get.
Yeah, I think he's trapped because of the contract.
And here's the thing. Then that is my point, is that he is a guy who, as a point guard, mentally makes your team worse, and that can override what he does statistically.
I don't know that it's him. I don't know that I put it like this. I don't know that it's him alone.
But when he sat down, that team was moving the ball. They were playing with joy. They were winning games.
Yeah.
And the thing is, it's not like they had a backup point guard like a Terry Rozier, where you're replacing a decent amount of the production.
Yeah,
I was playing backup point guard for the Washington Wizards when they went on that run, man. Like, come on.
Oh man, I don't know, man. I don't know.
No, honestly, I think he is getting into. This is harsh, and I don't mean it to be this harsh because he's not there yet. If John Wall doesn't change from how he's been the last 2.5 years, I think he's getting to a Carmelo Anthony place where his stats are completely empty and the team is never, ever, ever going to beat a real playoff team with him there.
I mean, I don't
And
think.
I don't know what you could put around him to fix it. And that's the real problem. See, with Russell Westbrook, I could fix it. With Kyrie Irving, I could fix it. With Dame, I can fix it. With John Wall, I don't know what championship team I could put him on. I don't know any of the top 6 playoff teams that I could put John Wall on and make them better.
I think that I don't know. Maybe this is just me over believing in this particular system, but I think John in San Antonio would be fantastic.
I think Kyrie in San Antonio would be better.
If you can give him that.
What?
You
No,
can get
but the thing is, I mean, Kyrie healthy in Boston has already performed really, really, really well in that system. I don't think Kyrie cost them games in that system. I don't think he's the perfect fit for a Jason Tatum team, which is really what it's coming down to.
Right.
Is Kyrie Irving and Jason Tatum right now aren't necessarily a great fit. but it's still not such a bad fit that they're a bad team. They're
Oh, no.
still right.
Yeah.
They're still. But here's the thing: we're comparing Kyrie versus John, and Kyrie has been in the finals year after year after year, and is currently on what most people think is at worst the second best team in the Eastern Conference. I think there's an argument that they could be the third worst,
You,
but
it's the argument for third. It's even an argument for fourth if you believe that Philadelphia can get themselves together.
I don't think that there's any reality where Philadelphia is a better team than Boston.
Yeah, I mean,
Even though you know what? No, I'm gonna stick. I'm gonna leave that right there. Joel
yeah,
Embiid is super duper great, but Philadelphia has such bad management that's getting away with murder. They like Naughty Dog, you know, they get
nah.
away with murder. They draft Joel Embiid, they draft Ben Simmons, and every other
They got
mistake is okay. That shitty
Joel
controls.
Embiid is Grand Theft Auto.
Right. You know what I mean? The story is so great that the bad controls let you get away with murder. That's what I think Philly is, and Boston is the opposite. They're an excellently run organization that's going through some serious injury issues with two of their main players coming back from injury. And didn't they lose Baines?
Yeah,
And he's a serious rotation player for them.
yeah,
So you know, that's a lot of adversity for Boston. Whereas Philly ain't nothing wrong with Philly. They're just bad.
they're just bad. They're
They're
just
just
bad.
bad. You know. So no, I think now the thing with Milwaukee, I think people really are sleeping on how good they are because Milwaukee, from a personnel standpoint, was getting close, and then Brook Lopez just completely breaks the game. Like he allows them to play 5 out. They're a pro-am team now,
Yeah,
right? So when you can play 5 out with Giannis just dunking on people, there's not really a countermeasure for that. You know, you just gotta deal with that. So, but long story short, I do think Boston is. I think Boston's at worst the third worst team, probably the second worst team in the East. Washington is the worst team in the league,
yes, they are. They are.
and
They,
they have no reason to be the worst team in the league.
they are. I
Their
mean,
roster is not the worst roster in the
but
league.
I think sometimes things happen. We saw Kobe play on one of the worst teams in the league.
But they were actually their roster was like one of the worst rosters.
But yeah, but
You
that's
took Kobe Bryant off that team, and it was like a G League team.
well. I mean,
You take Washington off of this. I mean, you take
I saw LeBron take a team like that to the finals.
No, they weren't that bad.
Oh,
We supposed to move on to MMA, but we gonna break the show if you're gonna sit up here and tell me that Smush Parker is as good as Mo Williams, and that Chris Mim is as good as Anderson Varejao, and that
no.
was it Brian Cook is as good as Zydrunas Ilgauskas.
Hey,
None of those things are true.
no, Devin George was just
And that
it was about on the same level with Jamario Moon and those guys that LeBron had in those.
no, but he had other players that were. Eric Snow's a solid player.
It was Larry Hughes.
Like if you put Eric Snow, if you simply trade Eric Snow for Smush Parker, they probably beat the Suns, dude. The Lakers beat the Suns. So stop. They were not equivalent teams. Like true, both teams did not have like all stars on them, but there's a long way. Kwame Brown, dude, stop it. Kwame Brown, like Anderson Varejao and Zydrunas Ilgauskas are so much better than Kwame.
Put it like this.
Stop
okay, the Cavs team was better, but not hugely better than that Lakers team. Like if you had that Cavs team without LeBron against that Lakers team without Kobe,
they beat them every time.
They beat them every time, but it's not ridiculously better. I
think it is. I think you're seriously underestimating how bad the core, the nucleus of Chris Mim, Smush Parker, a young and what's his name?
Devin George.
I mean Devin George. Like it goes on and on. You talk about some bad players, dude. There's some bad players.
I don't know.
Like really, like literally, those are some of the worst players to ever play in the NBA. That's not it. Are you gonna argue that?
I think that is excessive.
It's not. That's the funny thing is that it's not. Like literally, those players left the Lakers and couldn't get work anymore. It's not an exaggeration. It was a truly terrible team. But let's move on, Brian. You have something to tell the people.
Okay. Let's move on. All right, so we're gonna talk some MMA real quick. Just talking about some of the stuff that's coming up this weekend. We got UFC Fight Night 139. The main event has been ripped up and torn up, but it's still looking pretty decent. So this is actually a pretty big show because it is the 25th anniversary show. So UFC's first ever event was held in Denver, Colorado. So for the 25th anniversary show, they're going back to Denver, Colorado for this show. They probably wanted a few more names here, but this is what they got. The main event now is Chan Sung Jung, the Korean Zombie. He's obviously a big time fan favorite.
Yep.
Pulled off the Twister submission, which is one of the rarest submissions to finish an opponent. That was like, years ago. He'd actually stepped away because he had a commitment to the South Korean military that he had to fulfill. But back, he has some injuries as well. But he's taking on Yair Rodriguez. He was supposed to be fighting Frankie Edgar, but Frankie Edgar got hurt. So now Yair steps in for him. This is a really exciting fight on paper. Hopefully it turns out as it appears. Lately, that hasn't been happening, though. Lately it feels like whenever there's a fight that looks like it should just be a can't miss one, it misses. I don't know. I mean, I don't know. Did you see the Francis Ngannou Derek Lewis fight? Everybody thought that was just going to be, just.
See, I never put Ngannou and can't miss because Ngannou's not a real fighter. So
Ooh.
He's a Brock Lesnar type where, except Brock Lesnar has a real wrestling pedigree, whereas Ngannou is just a freak of nature. He's like the Zion Williamson of MMA guys. You know what I'm saying? Just this beast you throw at people, and sometimes he's a beast, and sometimes he's just
he was a beast in every fight, just about up until the fight with Derek Lewis is when everything.
But as an MMA fan, we've all seen guys who knock people out until they fight somebody who either A, can survive the first round, and this is true of many knockout artists, and it's worse in MMA than it is in boxing. That every knockout artist is a different fighter in the second round than they are in the first round. Right?
Yeah, I mean, yeah.
So, I'm talking about explosive one-punch knockout guys, not guys who wear you down and put you down. But like those explosive one-punch knockout guys, your chances of winning the fight after the first round skyrocket. In an MMA, there's a way to avoid punches in a way that there isn't in boxing, right? So as an MMA fan that if somebody's coming around knocking people out, they need the Chuck Liddell, Conor McGregor tool set where they can defend takedowns at such a high rate that what they do is they reverse it. They fatigue the wrestler or BJJ guy by attempting submissions, trying to get you down, and then they stand back up, and you're very vulnerable when you stand back up, right? And especially like in those moments when you first stand back up, and then even after those moments when you first stand back up, when you need to be on the lookout for some heat coming at you. Ngannou never had that skill set. He did not develop that skill set yet. The question was, would he develop it? And he was so gassed after his first rounds. I personally never thought, oh, this guy is going to be guaranteed a good fight every time. I always was afraid of the possibility that some mid-level person could just snatch him up by the ankle, put him on his back, and then Ngannou is basically out of the fight now. And whatever he turns into after the first round is what we're going to be watching. And that's always the danger with a guy like that until they learn to either wrestle. Well, really, until they learn to wrestle.
Well, with Ngannou, it's not really about not learning to wrestle. It's about the cardio. The cardio is the issue, because if you don't have cardio, it doesn't matter what you don't have the energy to employ it.
But cardio is one of the main statistics one of the main attributes of a great wrestler. Almost every great wrestler has great cardio.
Well, there's some wrestlers who don't have good cardio. It all depends on the conditioning for that particular fight at that particular moment, because there are some wrestlers who have the skill set, but they just for that particular fight, maybe at this portion of their life, they're not training and not preparing properly to have that type of cardio. Ngannou, as you were saying, is very much, or was primarily a KO guy, but Ngannou had already displayed some pretty advanced submission opportunities and submission skills. I mean,
It's
he
not about
wasn't.
submissions, though. It's about defending takedowns specifically.
But defending takedowns actually was not a major issue for him either. The problem was because everybody that fights Ngannou tries to take him down. That's what you do.
Yeah, but everybody ain't good at
But
it.
Curtis Blades is a dynamic wrestler. First time he fought him, that's exactly what he tried to do. He took him down. He was on top for a portion of the fight. But once Ngannou got back up, he was able, like you said, to do some damage. He damaged Curtis Blades' eye to the point where the fight had to be stopped because his eye literally was just on swole. And Ngannou was leading on the cards anyway. Now, coincidentally, those two guys are actually going to have a rematch coming up in the next few months. But Ngannou's biggest thing is not so much if he's not just this big guy who is just strong. He is more than that. The problem with him is totally and entirely about cardio. It's not about technique. Well, I don't, it's not solely about technique, because the problem against Stipe was once he got on his back, he was so tired that no matter anything that he did know about how to defend from a grappling standpoint went out of the window, because he was too gassed to employ any of it anyway. He was embarrassingly gassed. And I believe he got to a point where he started believing his own hype. I really, truly believe, and I had an opportunity to interview him right before his second fight with Derek Lewis. And talking to him, I'm just to be honest, talking to him, he believed at least that showing up, landing the shot is all I need to do.
And that's a serious problem.
And that's not a formula for success at high level mixed martial arts. And he was so dynamic that he was having success at it for a time. I mean, he knocked out some good fighters. But when you go against a guy who has a proven wrestling skill set, like, people don't realize that Stipe is a good wrestler. They know now.
Sure.
They know now. So, and that's what made the fight with Derek Lewis so bad, because we're talking about somebody who doesn't have any wrestling capabilities. But he was way too tentative, because he was just too, at this point now, his confidence is damaged. And he's just trying not to get knocked out. So, that's the whole thing with Ngannou, though. But, he's not fighting this week. I mean, he's not yet. It's coming up, and everybody's still going to watch. But I think the action fight on this card, outside of the main event, is Donald Cowboy Cerrone against Mike Perry.
I love Cowboy.
Most people love to watch Cowboy fight. Cowboy is pretty decent. It's definitely a good show. Mike Perry is an odd guy for me. Mike Perry is kind of like, I called him, I wrote a piece up and I said, Mike Perry is a guy who the UFC wanted to be much better than he is. He has the look, he has the charisma, he has all of those things. He's this edgy character. He says that he's 2% black, so he gets to say the N-word. so he's out there, right? But the fact of the matter is he just doesn't win. He doesn't win. I mean, yes, he did beat Paul Felder after Paul Felder broke his arm. But for the most part, Mike Perry has gotten every opportunity to ascend to a championship contending level, and he hasn't been able to do it. He was coming off a 2-fight losing streak when he beat Paul Felder by a split decision. So he beat a guy with a broken arm by a split decision.
Do you think this fight's going to be? It's not going to be as strong.
I mean, I think it's going to be a strong fight, because these two guys, I know what I said about how things that look good on paper have somehow turned out not to be good. This is one of those fights that I just can't imagine, with the way that both of these guys fight, that we're not going to see some action. Because Mike Perry doesn't want to be on the ground. Donald Cerrone is outstanding at Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, but he's at a point in his career where he already knows the title contending, the legitimate. He knows that's not realistic.
Which is the disappointing thing with a guy like Cowboy, because he's the kind of guy who can push. We were talking about matchups before, right? He's the kind of guy who can fight a great fighter and put up a great fight, but will not beat a great fighter
He's a gatekeeper.
Yeah,
He's a
yeah, yeah.
gatekeeper at this point. At this point in his career, he's a gatekeeper, and I think he knows that, and I think he's okay with it. But when you're at that place in your head as a fighter, now, especially as a mixed martial artist, now he's about putting on a show and making sure that his fights are entertaining, because that extends his career, having entertaining fights, even if he loses. So I think because of that, he's going to bang with Perry. He's going to bang. He's going to scrap. He's going to strike with Perry. So I think that one's a tough one to have as a fight that won't be as entertaining as it appears on paper. So it's going to be interesting.
Yeah, I'm
Also,
excited for that. I'm excited for that one.
yeah, I think most mixed martial arts fans are looking forward to that one. Another mixed martial arts event that is happening this weekend is happening in Singapore. It is One Championship's Heart of a Lion. That card took a blow as well, because arguably the biggest star in the promotion, Angela Lee, she's the atomweight champion. She was going for the strawweight championship, going for the trying to become a double champion, which has suddenly become the thing in mixed martial arts. But yeah, she was going to be looking to become a double champion. She was going to take on Shang Jing Nan, who is the women's strawweight champion. But Angela suffered a back injury, so she had to be pulled off the card. Luckily, they already had this set up as a two championship, a two title main event or card. And Bibiano Fernandez, who is the promotion's longest reigning champion, he's their greatest champion. He has 8 successful defenses of the bantamweight title. He's going to be defending in a rematch against Kevin Belingon, who is the interim champion. So that's an interesting fight. It's really, that event is interesting for the fight itself, but it's also interesting because Demetrius Johnson is going to be there. So is Eddie Alvarez, who the two biggest acquisitions that One Championship has made in the last few months. They just announced their esports organization today, and they've already erected Demetrius Johnson as the chief brand ambassador for that. But I believe, based off of just things that are moving around, I believe that Sage Northcutt is going to be announced as their next acquisition. So he's already tweeted that he's on his way to Singapore. He tweeted that yesterday, I believe, sometime early. I believe he's a free agent right now. He is going to be, I think, signed by One Championship, and I think that announcement is going to be made probably the day of the event. So they're doing some work. They're doing some work in a lot of ways, trying to make some huge splashes. They're already the largest sports media property in Asia, and it's clear they are doing laying the groundwork to be more visible in the United States and in North America. So that's one to watch as well.
Yeah,
Yeah.
acquiring talent, man. Acquiring talent long term. Do you think they'll ever be competitive with the UFC?
I think they can be competitive with the UFC. I think there's a big gap between overall talent, because one has a lot of solid guys and girls at the tops of their divisions, but there's just not the depth. And not all of the divisions are good. Like the division that Demetrius is going into right now, the flyweight division in one is not really strong. Their champion, Geji Eustaquio, he would probably be a prelim guy in the UFC. So, and that's the champion in one. So that their divisions are not anywhere near as deep. Now, do I believe that many of One's champions could compete in the UFC and be dangerous and maybe get some things done? Yeah, I think they probably 4 or 5 of them could. Angela Lee is one, for sure. But just top to bottom, yeah, no, I don't think that that the talent level is there yet. But what is there is the presentation. The events all look amazing. I'm talking like it's a spectacle every single time, and I think that's something that the UFC doesn't do. It's the same thing with American boxing. When you watch a boxing match in the United States and you watch one from the UK, you're looking like, why don't the people in the United States put on fights and put on events like this? And you're like, why is this? But they don't. And for some
Mhm.
reason, outside the United States, it seems that people have a better handle on presentation when it comes to combat sports. And when you even saw it in Pride, you know, just a better handle on it. So I
Yeah.
do think that is an inroad. Um, and there's another thing that they do well that UFC doesn't do is they market their stars.
Mhm.
They build superstars, and that whatever is their thing, whatever is their from a geographical standpoint, wherever they're from, they're going to make sure that that person becomes a mega star at where they're from.
Yeah.
And then they're going to make sure that there are events that are placed there, and they use that as a platform. And so when you watch this fighter, so you say you're watching Ong La fight in Myanmar, when you watch him, even if you didn't think that Ong was anything before you started watching, after this, you think he is the greatest thing since sliced bread, because everybody in the arena is losing their minds. He is a icon in this place. So that just creates that visually it sends a message, and it raises the person's stock. And they're really
Mhm.
good at doing that with all of the fighters.
Awesome. Well, I'm glad to see more people getting into the game, man. Competition is healthy for the sport, and long term, I'd love to see more of this communication between the two leagues as talent in one continues to get better,
Yes.
and more opportunities as they grow and get popular. It'd be nice to see some more interactions, maybe even some fights, but that's a long
Yeah.
way down the road.
Yeah. I would love that. Yeah.
Yeah.
I've thrown that out there a couple of times, concepts of cross promotional things. But if you really think about it that way, the UFC is the one that has the most to lose by that.
For now, it's going to be, I think, long term. What we would hope for is a Conor McGregor Floyd Mayweather situation where everybody makes so much money that everybody wins, right?
Right.
Fans win because they see a spectacle. The individual fighters win, and everybody gets more popular. With the one, obviously not to that level because you have
Mhm.
Floyd, really pushing that. But even if it was a version of that, where you take two people who might not be able to give you a great pay-per-view on their own in their separate divisions, but if they fought each other, it'd be a big deal
Yeah.
because hopefully that'd be amazing. But yo,
That
thanks for
would-
that update, man. That's what we give the people here on
I'm
At
trying.
Me Bro. We're not
Trying.
just gonna fight about me being right about everything and Mazique
Yeah,
being wrong.
because usually he's wrong, and I decide to acquiesce or make him think that he's right. But it is what it is. All right, so we're gonna close it out. I got something to say about. We're shifting gears quite a bit. This is an NBA 2K League uh, comment or commentary.
Get it off your chest, Brian.
I got to get it off. So I have been working with the National Pro-Am Exposure organization, and I put out their top 50 list, and I kind of had my own opinions here and there. So we were scheduled to put out a top 100 list, but we ran into some kinks and weren't able to get that out now. So it's being revised on their end and doing some things. But over the course of this time period, just having the banter, um, just go back and forth between members of the community and me, because I've been tagged in the stuff that the NAPX has been putting out.
What's the NAPX for the people?
Yes, it's
Nope.
NAPX, the national. It's a national pro-am exposure thing, but I think that's flip flopped or something.
Yeah.
So a lot of people have been, sending me messages and things like that, and people, the pro-am community, the 2K community, they really take these lists really serious, and I'm happy that they do, because that means there are people that are reading my content. And the thing is that the list, they help to grow the overall community. They help to grow the list. They help to grow exposure for what's going on. They get people talking, and whenever there's people talking, there's money to be made, because that's attention, that's impressions, that's all of that, right? But then, of course, there are people who maybe don't make these lists, and that sort of thing, and they're critical of those, and that's fine too, because that also works in the same way. Um, but here's the one thing that I do want to say, and this might even be considered a little bit counterproductive, considering I am a person that will create a list and will create a ranking. But I think it's important to share this, because of the way and the structure that the Pro-Am setup is arranged with 2K. It is totally impossible to create a 100% accurate ranking of all 2K League prospects. And I'm going to tell you why. There is no place set up, there's no format, there's no platform set up currently that can definitively say all of the best players play here. Mm-hmm. Because there's no way to gauge that. Right now, there is the thought out there that if you play comp, which is MPBA, WR, SL2K, all of these different leagues, those are considered comp, right? But the thing of it is that there is no established criteria for being able to make it on one of these teams. You could make it on because you're friends with somebody. You can make it on because somebody did some sort of lightweight tryout and they said, oh, yeah, we think you're good. But nobody can certify that evaluator as a person who is in any level or any way an authority on the situation. It's all based on relationships and what this person thinks and what that person thinks. It's all about opinion at this point. And it's all and people are getting more weight added to their opinion based on maybe how long they've been involved. But longevity doesn't necessarily equate to authority or expertise.
Right. Now, Brian, do you think this would be helped if more teams broadcasted these comp games? Because I've seen some on YouTube, guys like Slay Island, they stream on Twitch, but everybody doesn't stream all the time. Right. And
everybody doesn't stream all the time.
So can't these guys take the responsibility, put it in their own hands and stream your comp games?
Well, honestly,
all the time. Put them on YouTube.
I think that helps from an exposure standpoint, but I still don't think that it truly proves who's the best, because here's the thing. There are guys who made the NBA 2K League, and some of those guys never played comp, or they never played quote unquote what's called comp. They came from teams that nobody had ever heard of before. Some of them turned out to be decent players. Some of them maybe not. To me, and this actually, the onus falls on 2K for this. In order to do this properly, the same type of metrics, whatever those systems are, and even these systems might be flawed, but whatever the systems and metrics that you're using to gauge who makes it into the next steps of qualifying for the NBA 2K League, that needs to be available, and there needs to be some sort of leaderboard available and for everybody to see within the Pro-Am community. So if you have something that says this person takes 40% of their shots are contested shots, these are technically bad shots. This person has extremely low level block efficiency, so they spam the block button 10 times, they get 1 block for every 10 jumps.
So here's where you and I disagree a little bit, because first of all, I agree with you on the whole list thing, right? It's not organized enough for lists to be hyper accurate. This is still the fetal, baby stages of real 2K competition. And frankly speaking, not only is the game not as refined as other competitive games, but it's also changed considerably since launch. So when the ground is shifting under you that much, and we're not talking about meta changes like in other games, we're talking about system changes, right? So when the ground is shifting under you, these players have to understand that there is no stable ground to judge these things from. So people are doing the best that they can. So I agree with you on that. The thing is, for myself, I think more important than metrics is more of everybody playing each other. Because at the end of the day, how much you win gets eventually funneled upwards, no matter what the numbers say. Because sometimes these competition games are not evenly matched to the point where the numbers look one way, and sometimes they're so evenly matched that the numbers look another way. And with the ground being unstable, there's no way to judge the context of the numbers. games. And that's pretty much that. It's like if you didn't know that the Wizards were as bad as they were and that Toronto was as good as they were, and you tried to judge NBA numbers, right? Like, you know what I'm saying? You would
Yeah.
know that, well, the context of this is different because of the level of competition, the circumstances they played under, blah, blah, blah. So I think people need to play each other more. They need to broadcast games more and start accumulating enough of these wins and losses amongst players and teams so that the cream starts to rise to the top without the need for numbers. Then you can apply the numbers to the elite teams and elite players who win a lot no matter who they're playing against, and start to filter out the people who are just participating a lot and accumulating numbers because they're always there and possibly beating up on scrubby teams.
Yeah, I think I agree with what you're saying, but I just feel like there needs to be a formula, an in-game formula built. Right now, I think that the metrics that the 2K uses and the 2K League uses to gauge superiority are not ideal. So I definitely think there needs to be some things done with that. But conceptually, I think it's the right approach. You're still going to find some things here and there in between here that will say, oh, well, you're missing that. But conceptually, creating something that says this judges how good you are at this game. It takes into consideration your stick skills. It takes into consideration the level of competition that you played, because everybody who plays in this format is getting graded on the same type of scale. So they have a rating, their team has a cumulative rating. So, and then also your matchup has a rating. So all of that is thrown into a mathematical pot to create an algorithm that generates a individual rating for each one of these players in this format, in this mode, in Pro-Am. So it's a leaderboard. It gives people things to shoot for. It gives talent evaluators a place to start. It doesn't tell you the end all be all. It just gives you a place to start. And that's the same thing that we have in traditional sports, right? So we look at and we're trying to figure out who's the better player, RJ Barrett or Zion Williamson. But the first thing we probably look at is their points per game average, their rebounds, their blocks, their assists, their whatever. If you want to go into advanced statistics, you look at, that sort of thing. But ultimately, you still got to watch them, right? You still got to watch them play if you want to completely scout them. So, but that statistical reference, I think, would give you some place to start the evaluation. And it's just like if you're talking about a player that comes from a small school. I might look at your numbers and your numbers are inflated. And they're like, oh my God, this what. So now I have to find out, is that really who you are? And would you be that person against everybody? Or do I have to peel off a little bit at a production because you weren't playing against good teams or good players? And then how much of it do I have to peel off? And that's where the scouting comes in. And that's where that level of expertise comes in. But I think it's 2K's responsibility to create a system that gives you a place to start. And until you have that place to start, these lists will never be thorough.
Yeah. Me and you are on the same page. We're not on the same paragraph, but we're on the same page.
Yeah. I think that's good enough.
Yeah, that's as close as we. Hey, this is at me, bro. All right, this ain't hug me, bro. So that's as close as we ever gonna get on the show. I hope y'all don't expect better than that.
So I'm gonna go ahead. We're gonna go ahead and sign out from there. I appreciate everybody who stuck it out with us and stayed through our first show. We're still honing some stuff. We're still working on our little algorithm, just like 2K should be working on theirs.
We're a little further along, maybe. I don't know.
We might be a little bit further. I don't know. We don't know. But as always, I appreciate everybody watching. God bless. And Books, do you want to tell somebody, tell the people something that you check out?
Hope you edit
that
out.
Bless you. I already blessed you once. Now I'm blessed you again.
No, just look for me on Instagram at Nelson Blake II or on Twitter at Nelson Blake 2, and you can follow me here on YouTube at Nelson Blake. So yeah, look for me there, and I'll have a bunch of new content coming for you guys. Oh, didn't introduce this before, but if you don't know me from Sim Nation, I draw comic books for Marvel and DC, Image, and all that stuff. That's my day job. So I'll be doing art tutorials and discussions and that kind of thing over on those channels.
Absolutely. The most brilliant artist that I know. And I don't, and I mean, and I mean that for real.
I appreciate that.
So yeah. All right. I appreciate you guys. Peace.
How could I be weak? I'm rather unique.